we're continuing in our series called Acts of Faith, and this week we are looking at a word that might have multiple meanings for us in this room, and it's the word community. And so we're going to take some time to explore together what that word means, why it's important, why you are important to community, and what that looks like in the life that we lead as we follow Jesus into the places and spaces he's called us to. So, as you know, we have been in the book of Luke. If you don't have a handout, then give us a wave because the team will give you a little handout. You might want that a little bit later. But what I want to encourage you to do is to turn to one another just a few verses this morning. Luke 8, verses 1 to 3. So if you want to just read that out loud together, just for a few moments, while these are being handed out if you don't have one of these, and then we will get into exploring Luke 8, verses 1 to 3 together. There we are, so a few more people. Brilliant, just keep your hands raised and you'll get a little handout. But yeah, if you don't have a physical Bible with you, if you just Google Luke 8, it will come up and you'll be able to read that. Thank you very much. Off you go. You got about 1 minute. Okay, anyone else hasn't got one, just raise your hands. If you'd like one, you don't have to have one. If you'd like one, brilliant. We are in week 3. Okay, just a couple more there and there, brilliant. Okay, I'm going to give you 30 seconds-ish. I don't really know, I've got a watch on. That scared some people now. Okay. So, Luke chapter 8, verses 1 to 3. I'm going to read it because there's only a few verses today. And I want to encourage you, this series that we're doing at the moment is when we're coming to communicate something, this is to give us a bit of an idea. This is to help us explore. I think Johnny's language is like, this is a sandwich, not supper. I'm from Wales, so I would say this is a sandwich, not your tea. Or it's a sandwich, not your dinner. You know, this kind of communication is to help us to think about it, but it's not the full extent. I have so many notes here, and there's no way we've got enough time to get through it all. So really want you to be thinking and asking God, what is community? What does that look like? How am I part of it? Why does it matter? And we pick up the story of Jesus and his disciples in Luke chapter 8. We've spent some time in 5, 6, and 7, 4 at the start of the year. And we're moving into chapter 8 this week. And it says this: soon afterward, Jesus began a tour of the nearby towns and villages, preaching and announcing the good news about the kingdom of God. I love it, a kingdom tour. He took his 12 disciples with him, along with some of the women who had been cured of evil spirits and diseases. Among them were Mary Magdalene, from whom he had cast out 7 demons, Joanna, the wife of Chuza, who knows if that's how you say it, Herod's business manager, Susanna, and many others who were contributing from their own resources to support Jesus and his disciples. So this is like the summary of like the kingdom tour. Things are about to change. You see, they'd been kind of based in and around one place. And now Jesus is like, right, we are going on tour with the good news. We are packing up and we are moving on. And Luke is so wonderful that he gives us a bit of an insight as to who was on the kingdom tour. Now, there might have been more people, but these are the ones that Luke draws his attention to. Because Jesus is on a mission, right? Yeah? Literally to save the world. He's on a mission to save the world, to show what friendship with God looks like, to show kingdom life and ways, and he's taking it on tour. And he's gathered this community of people around him. We've been following and tracking with Luke as he's been calling different people to follow him. Different people have been having their own encounters with Jesus and going, hey, who is this guy? I think I want to follow him. Hey, who is this guy? I think I want to kind of give my life after that. Who is this guy? I think I want to contribute towards what he's doing and what he's saying. And I think sometimes when we read stories of what Jesus did and the sermons that he preached and the parables that he told, we read them like isolated incidents, don't we? Oh, well, this thing happened here and this thing happened there. But they were on tour. So there's going to need to be logistics and provision. There's going to need to be planning and traveling. And it took a community of people to pull this off. Jesus chose to do it with a community of people. He could have done it on his own, but he chose to invite people to join in with his kingdom tour. Jesus doing what only Jesus can do, and each person contributing out of their own uniqueness. And as you read through the New Testament, particularly the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you see time and time again, Jesus and the disciples working together. It looked like work. It looked like sacrificial generosity. I mean, if Jesus turned up right now and said, hey, do you want to come on my kingdom tour? You'd be like, yep, back in vocals. Thanks very much. Or some of you might be like, back in dancer. Thanks very much. But actually, it looked like hard work. And it looked like sacrifice. And it looked like time. And it looked like generosity. And it looked like hanging around with people you wouldn't normally hang around with. It looked like hanging around with people that actually you were very opposite to politically, that you were very opposite to in terms of your culture or your identity, that actually you were on like the exclusion zone and suddenly you're right in the center of community. This is what Luke is telling us. This group of people is radical. We don't read it that way. We're like, yeah, there were some guys, yeah, there were some girls, and it was great, and they had a lovely time. No. The first century people would be like, what is Jesus doing? Who are the people he's got around him? Why is he gathering this band of people together to create a community in order to preach and teach and tell and show the kingdom? Well, I think it's because we're made for community. Why did he do that? Because God made us to connect with him and to connect with one another. We are not meant to do this life on our own. And I just want us to think about this word community, because I believe that community happens when we choose it. What do I mean by that? Well, it happens when we choose to engage or contribute or care or connect. Community only happens if you're willing to do that, if I'm willing to do that. We could create all of the best amazing resources and programs and events in the world, but if you as an individual don't go, I'm going to connect with that, I'm going to contribute into that, I'm going to be a part of that, community isn't built. I also think that community deepens when we do that with consistency and commitment. We say, do you know what? I am a part of this community, even when it's difficult. Katie's already preached it for us this morning. Even when it's challenging, even when it's difficult, we're going to keep showing up as individuals, we're going to keep showing up collectively. And I think community grows as we invite and welcome others to follow Jesus. So I want us to think about what is community. So that is your first question. I want you to turn to each other. You've got literally 60 seconds. This is a whistle-stop tour. Thanks very much. I want you to take literally 30 seconds each, your definition or your description of community. Go. What is community? And in the chat, we'd love to hear yours too. Okay, so I promise you, at the end of our meeting, if you weren't able to get into deep conversation, then you are more than welcome to stay around and carry on these conversations. But I think when we use the word community, I think there's lots of ideas that come into our mind. I love some of the stuff in the chat online. Christy's put fellowship, support, togetherness. Debbie's put people amongst us. I think we can have lots of ideas of what community means, okay? But I'm just going to give you my thoughts on it. And you can agree or disagree and talk to me about it afterwards. So I think community is something to do with shared experience. It doesn't happen outside of shared experience. Maybe it's a group of people who are bonded together around values or vision. They're committed to one another. Maybe they're committed to a mutual cause and context. So you can be a community in a family, at your workplace, at your local gym. That's obviously not me, but some people with your board games group. Hello. That's more me. But I think for followers of Jesus, the church, the vision that we are kind of gathered around, the vision that pulls us together is Jesus. He is the thing that unites us. He is the common bond. Following him, joining in with his kingdom mission for transformation and renewal and salvation and justice in the world to serve those around us. As followers of Jesus in community, we're not a silo. We're not separate from the community that exists around us. We are part of that community. And we're called to take the love and life of Jesus into those places and spaces. So community happens through shared experience, when we choose to engage. And I love this, to contribute, to care and connect. I mean, there are so many other words we could put around this, but I want us to think about what does community look like for me? If I have an understanding of what community is, then I can know whether I'm part of it and whether I'm contributing towards it. If I don't know what it is, then how can I know? that shared experience. Katie's already kind of set us off in the right direction. Earlier this morning on our team time, we had Anne-Marie sharing about how her neighbours had gathered round and connected with her, and they'd had a great time in her home, and they'd really encouraged her when she was in a difficult season. Community can look like all of those things. But it happens when we choose it, as we choose it. It is so easy to isolate. It is so easy to disengage. It's so easy to be so busy with everything else. But I want to encourage us, and I have been the recipient of this community in a very special way over the last sort of 12 months or so, and I can't tell you how much it makes a difference. So your second question then, leading beautifully, seamlessly on, is why does community matter? So if community is about shared experiences, about doing life with one another, about cheering one another on, about support and care and contribution and welcome and participation and all of those wonderful words, why does community matter? Okay, 1 minute, off you go. Okay, if you want to draw those conversations to a close, this might be quite difficult in the room, online. You're very chatty today, it's exciting. Okay. Guys, if we could just stop the music a moment, that would be great. Fab. Okay. I mean, I don't mind dancing along as we go. As I said, you can continue these conversations after our meeting has come to an end. This week, there's a theologian in residence for a charity called Home for Good, which is about encouraging followers of Jesus to adopt and to foster children. And in Home for Good, their theologian in residence, Dr. Tim Davey, shared some thoughts on community this week. And I was like, oh, great, screenshot that. And he said this: community in the Bible is a rich and varied topic. The main focus is on the communities in which these people find themselves. After all, to be human is to be in community. And so it is assumed that Christians will be in community. So in other words, to be human is to be in community. So why does community matter? Because we're human and we need one another. We need engagement. We need participation. I also think that community, when we see it in the Bible, and as we see it through church history, and as we see it like expressed in our lives today, is an imperfect picture of the kingdom as well. Everyone's welcome. Everyone's got a part to play. And we're meant to do this thing together. We are all welcome to know God. And I love that in Luke, he presents this picture of a community that was so different and so radical. People were included that hadn't been included before. And I want to take a few moments to unpack that, to help us then understand why community matters. If you read through the book of Luke, he's so good at giving you the details. He loves particularly to draw our attention to the kinds of people that Jesus is interacting with that would have felt very radical and a little bit scandalous at the time. The religious leaders were like, what? He's talking to that person and this person. And he gives us the details of the people who are in this community. There are men, there are women, there are married people, there are single people, there are some people from Galilee, they are culturally different. There are people in this group who are traitors to the Jewish faith. Levi, a tax collector, seen as a Roman collaborator. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, there's a guy called Simon, who is an Essene zealot, which basically means they separated themselves out for fear of contamination to be holy. So you've got one person who's like a traitor, and the other person who lives in such a way that thinks that they're so holy, and Jesus throws all these people together, and he's like, come on, we're community. And hearing this summary would have caused a stir, because who does Luke draw out? The women. Shook. What? Women were included in the community. Never. Whoa. In those days, the role and place of women was so subjugated. Jesus is doing something so radical here, and Luke is drawing our attention to it. Who are some of these women? Well, they're of varying background and status. Joanna, it said, is the wife of a business manager for Herod. Herod is a political leader. It's part of the Roman Empire. And so some commentators think that maybe the business manager was kind of in the political thick of it. He was the household manager. Other commentators think he might have been a slave. So you think, wow, so in this community that Jesus is gathering around him, he's got fishermen and he's got tax collectors and he's got zealots and he's got women who come from the political thick of it, whatever their status. It talks about a lady called Mary Magdalene. Now, we often wrongly assume she is one of the other Marys. She's not. She's her own person. And the description of Mary Magdalene is someone who's been freed of demonic power. That's who she is. Wow. Can you imagine? So she's got a story to tell, right? I love the idea of just Mary rocking up to a place going, let me tell you about my encounter with Jesus. And they all go, what? This is amazing. There's a lady called Susanna. She's probably upper class society. And it says that Jesus took all of these along with him. They were invited to participate. Radical inclusion. Why does community matter? Because it shows us the heart of God to welcome. It shows us the heart of God to say we are all invited to know Jesus, to find him, to follow him, to participate in his kingdom. Whatever background, you can find and follow Jesus and be part of community. Why does community matter? Because we need each other. We do. We really need each other. It is vital to our personal growth, to our well-being, to our collective mission. You know, the disciples are finding out that Jesus' reach is expanding, okay? The places that they go into and the people they're encountering, it is becoming this bigger mission. I don't know what they thought they signed up for, maybe this, but suddenly they're on tour and they need each other. They're not all in their hometowns. They don't have all the safety and the security of what they've known before. They're on the road with Jesus. They need each other to grow in their faith. They need each other to support each other, to wrestle with the big ideas. I love the fact that often Jesus is teaching, the disciples are sat around going, I have no idea. Do you know what he meant by that parable? I don't know what he meant by that parable. What do you think he meant by that parable? Well, I think he meant this. Well, I think Can I sit at your right hand, Jesus? No, I want to sit at your right hand, Jesus. There's all this stuff going on. They need each other to grow in their faith. And they need each other to fulfill Jesus' mission whilst he's with them here on earth and when he goes back to heaven. And if you read on through into the book of Acts that Luke also wrote, you'll see they understood the assignment. Community happens when we choose to engage. It deepens as we commit, and it grows as we invite. Why does community matter? Because it reflects the heart of God, because we need each other. Okay, final question, third question, and this you might find a little bit more difficult to answer, because for those of us who might be British and polite in the room, we're going to have to just get over ourselves. The question is, how am I important to community? So, I know, what I want you to do is to tell somebody else why you're important to community. Now, don't be all falsely humble here and go, oh no, but you're so good. I want you to think about, in community, if community is shared experience and participation and contribution and welcome and like we're all from different backgrounds, but we're kind of gathered around the one cause, the one person, God himself, Jesus Christ. Like, why am I important? So we know what community is. We understand why community is important. Why am I important? So I can see some of you squirming in your seats. You are like, Sarah, you are not my friend right now. But I would really like you to think about that. Okay, I'm only going to give you 1 minute. Off you go. Why am I, or how am I important to community? Okay. I'm really glad that some of you have lots to share and others of you are not quite sure yet. That is okay. So how am I important to community? You might look around a room. You might look at the different roles that people do in community, and you might go, oh, well, that person's important to community, but I'm not. Or that person has something to contribute to community, but I don't. I want to say you are important to community because there is only one you. There is only one you. And some of you are like, thank the Lord. There is only one you. And so you have a unique contribution, a unique perspective, a unique story to bring into community and into the kingdom. And I love this idea of thinking about ourselves as a contribution. I read this book called Say Yes by Scott Erickson at the start of the year. And he talks about this idea, not just that we have something to contribute, which we all do, but that our very presence is a contribution. Our character, our personality, the way that we smile, the way that we welcome people, the way that maybe some people are shy and some people are not shy, or, whatever it is, like, you are a contribution. And community isn't the same when we are not being that contribution. These women had encountered Jesus. It says that they were cured of diseases, that they were set free from demonic power. Like they had had an encounter with Jesus that transformed them and was transforming them. And they brought their story and they brought their contribution out of their own resources so that the whole community was blessed. That as they toured around and as they moved around, other people were welcomed. Who was telling the women about Jesus? The women. No one else was allowed to talk to them in those days. Like who is setting up things and who is getting involved, but it doesn't make sense without an encounter with Jesus. It doesn't make sense if you don't know Jesus. They're not doing it out of duty. They're not doing it because it's a chore. They're not doing it because they're like, nah, I've got nothing better to do with my life. I think I'll just join this bandwagon. They're doing it because Jesus has captivated their hearts, their lives, their attention. He's transforming them, and they want others to experience that. And I love how it says they contributed out of their own resources. They brought what they had to bring, not what somebody else had to bring. You bring what only you can bring, not what somebody else can bring. I think sometimes we get so caught up in comparison. Oh, well, they can do this and I can't do that. And they can sing really nice and I can't do that. And they can draw really nicely and I can't draw a straight line with a ruler. You know, whatever it is. They can bake, I can eat, you know, like just take your pick. Just so you know. Any opportunity to get free cake. So each of us have a contribution. So, and to help us think about that this week, I've brought my rucksack with me because I want us to land this in a really tangible way. I love the way that Johnny encourages us to do that, to take everyday objects and things to help be like a provocation and a reminder and a catalyst. So I've brought my rucksack, which is really heavy and is usually full of stuff. Now, I'm using this as an example, but really I want to tell you about Pastor Sarah Hingley, although she's not in the room. She's around the back working with our younger kids. Do you pack your bag each week? It could be a handbag, a school bag, a tote bag, a man bag, a wallet, a purse, whatever. Something that your shopping bag, something that you carry around with you on a regular basis. You would normally pack it for the resources that you need to get through, right? So in mine, I have an umbrella. I never use it, but it's there just in case, you never know. I usually put like my iPad in there, my notebook, my diary, some pens, my water in the side. Chargers, you always need the plug chargers because, you know, batteries die. If this was Pastor Sarah Hingley's bag, she would pack it for the stuff that she needs, but she would also pack it with the stuff that other people would need. And so Sarah would come in on a Monday morning, most Monday mornings, to our team time. And Sarah's bag, as she got out of the bag, she would pull out pastries for the team, gluten-free for those who weren't able to have it. She would pull out a book recommendation for Johnny. She'd pull out some crisps for Rianne. She'd have a link in her phone to a graphic for Andy that she's like, Andy, this looks amazing. She would pull out an extension lead for Karen's laptop because we can never find one on a Monday morning. And she would bring chocolate for me. So she packs with other people in mind because she's a contribution. And we're not packing for other people. We're packing our own stuff. But we're bringing it with us with that intentional mindset of how can I be a contribution in my own way? What are your resources? Your resources might be time. Your resources might be prayer. Your resources might be a listening ear. Let's not be kind of so narrow-minded that we think of resources only in kind of like material possessions. But your resources might be that you have a car and you can drive someone who doesn't drive to a hospital appointment. Your resources might be that you have some food and you can give it to the food bank so that people without can have that. And your resource might be that you really care about young people and you're saying to Rianne, how can I get involved? This is an incredible generation. What can I do to serve the young people in our community? What are your resources? Because you are a contribution. So I want us to go away thinking about this. So if you have a bag or a purse, I would like you to stand with me if you're able and willing. That would be wonderful. If you've got a bag or a purse, something that you have with you every week, your wallet, your phone, just something that you're going to have with you. If you want to just hold it, I'm putting my bag on my shoulder. Thanks very much. Pick up your bag, Janet. Come on, you've got it. I want us to have this very simple reminder that community happens when we choose it. We've got to choose it. And that means hard work sometimes. That might mean a sacrifice of time. That might mean generosity that makes us feel uncomfortable. That might mean choosing to participate when we'd rather stay in bed. Community deepens when we do that consistently and with commitment. And community grows when we invite others into the journey. into the adventure of knowing Jesus. We're not meant to do this on our own. And so as you hold on to your bag, your purse, your wallet, whatever it is that represents kind of the thing that you're going to see a lot this week. And if you don't have it with you, go home and get it out and pray. I'm going to pray for us, and then Johnny's going to come and share some information with us that'll be helpful for us. Lord, I thank you that you have created us for connection. You've created us to be part of community. Lord, thank you that none of us have to do this alone. And forgive us for the times where we have not been community to one another. Forgive us for the times where we've chosen things other than community. God, thank you that you invite us to be a part of it. And that we, each of us uniquely created in your image, are a contribution to this community. Lord, would you give us courage and boldness and wisdom to bring our contribution, to choose to engage, to choose to participate, to choose to welcome, to be committed to that as we gather around you, Jesus. You're the one we gather around. You're the vision that we gather around you, Jesus. And help us to invite others into that adventure. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.